before we head down to the coast. We head down to the coast and we turn a hard right. That's where we get the final intermediate sprint of the day. Remember, 6 seconds on offer there, 6, 4 and 2. Then they have a raging tailwind all the way to the final right-hander, which is with 400 metres to go, up a slight drag. So the last section of this race should be pretty quick. So they'll have a cross-tail, cross-head for a bit. But I think the teams need to start now paying attention. We've seen races split in the past, but I do think you're right. I think that Soudal Quickstep in particular want to try and set Fabio Jakobsen up, not make any mistakes this time. The first day was a really complex sprint, wasn't it? We know timing is crucial in sprints all of the time, but in a headwind, it's particularly important. And the team that got it right was the team of Alexander Kristoff. Today I'm wondering whether they'll try and get Kristoff in for win number 2, or whether they'll flick it round and it'll be Mera and Natu goes for it. Who knows? He's sprinting well, especially up a little drag. So not too sure who they're going to play for, but they'll definitely be in the mix, and they are very, very well drilled.
Our television viewers are going to join us in just a couple of minutes' time, so when they do, we'll explain how long we think there is to go, because we're not getting the graphic up yet, and about that maybe slightly uphill finish that Matt Stevens just talked about. We've seen it before in Tavira. I remember particularly the year that Kees Bol was the winner. It was all about the positioning. He beat some huge names in the sprint there. One of the most successful sprint wins of his career in terms of people who he beat, I think, so far. Kees Bol, who's now gone to Astana, Kazakhstan, to be with Mark Cavendish. And there we go, 68 kilometres to go. Heading in towards Tavira on a long day, 203.1 Ks in total. It is day 3 in VOLTA ALGARVE. Southern Portugal, the scene for a cloudy day so far. And we're not too far from the border in Spain. You know, it's been windy over in Andalusia today, and Andalusia is just a few kilometres away from where these riders are at the moment. It is windy out there at the minute. That direction is blowing in a way that could really influence the race in the final 67 kilometres here. We've got 6 riders in the breakaway. Pedro Andrade, Daniel Viegas, Alexander Grigorev, who's taken both King of the Mountain sprints today and will move up to 4th in the KOM standings. Antonio Ferreira's not in the breakaway, but he will keep the jersey today. Also in the break, Gonzalo Amado, Guillermo Garcia and Fabio Costa. All of the teams represented today in that break are all domestic teams from the 3rd division of professional cycling. All riders representing teams from Portugal. 4 of those riders are Portuguese. We've got a Spaniard and a Russian as well. And in the peloton, we've got the yellow jersey, who is now a Dane. Magnus Cort with one of the sprints of the season. I'm pretty confident that I can say that already, even though it's only, what are we, the 19th of February? 17th of February. Getting ahead of myself. Even at the end of the season, you could count Magnus Cort's sprint yesterday as one of the best of the year, I'm pretty sure, Matt Stevens.
It was brilliant. We've rewatched it on numerous occasions, and I'm more than happy to watch it again, because for the vast majority of the aerial pictures that we saw, he was simply out of the screen, and that equated to the best part of 15-20 metres behind the leader. And you have also to credit Ilan van Wilder for his sprint, because he took it up very early into the headwind, and only one rider could come round him. Rui Costa couldn't come off his wheel. They looked relatively laboured. Jai Hindley couldn't accelerate any quicker. So the young Belgian did put in one of the sprints of his life, and that would have been his first pro win. He thought he'd got it, but of course Magnus Cort Nielsen came up on the inside. So and interestingly, Van Wilder's taken it quite pragmatically, and when you look back over his results over the last couple of years in time trials, there's 2 particular time trials he's done well in: the Dauphiné and Tour de Romandie. He's backing himself for the overall win. He hopes to ride well tomorrow, and by what we saw yesterday, he certainly will. But if he does put a gap, creates a little bit of a gap on the slightly steeper climb to the finish tomorrow, he could be in with a shout of the overall, and is certainly looking to try and put that sprint behind him, but also take something from it, because he was very, very strong, and has always, when he rode the Tour of Spain last year, the VOLTA, he backed up in the TTs, but now wants to really open it up on the final TT day. So I think a lot of credit is due, just that little error. But blimey, we only got sight of Magnus Cort Nielsen in the dying meters, Rob, didn't we, as well? So it's a really tough one, that was.
It was very exciting to watch, wasn't it? Absolutely loved it. And Magnus Cort there to provide the entertainment. Heartbreak, though, for Ilan van Wilder. Some of his colleagues might have been poking fun at him last evening for the celebration. That's all part of the game, isn't it? As we get to Alcotim, which is right on the border with Spain. We just saw a river a moment ago. And across the other side of that little stretch of water is Andalusia. Here in the Algarve, riders turning around and heading south from here on. They'll go into the interior ever so slightly before they get to Villarreal Santo Antonio. And then after that, it's around 25 kilometres along the coast. Now, Matt, what is the wind doing today?
Well, the wind is blowing east to west, and it's pretty strong, 25, 30 kilometres an hour. And when it comes in off the coast, it's, well, when you get to the coast, you've got winds that strong. It could have an effect on the race, but they'll be right in their back. So when we get to the final intermediate sprint of the day, or just before it, we swing right and we basically follow the main road all the way in to the finish at Tavira, and the wind will be directly in their backs. But this approach to that right-hander, so we've got the best part of 30 Ks along this particular stretch now. The wind will be coming from their left-hand side. It does look quite sheltered. I thought there's going to be a little bit more of exposed terrain here, but it's relatively sheltered still. But when they do pick up that tailwind, the bunch would have wanted to have narrowed this gap down to about a minute, I would say, with 25 Ks to go, just to make sure. We have seen the peloton in the past, especially when the wind is in the back of a breakaway. They're far harder to get back, despite the fact they've been out in front for a long time. Once they pick up that tailwind, they can still ride very, very effectively. Of course, they're moving quicker, so regardless of the kilometres that you have to go, there's actually less time for the bunch to catch them up as well. So they're going to want to keep a lid on this, and Soudal Quickstep are doing that right now. They're one of the big favourite teams, of course, and they've got one rider on the front. It's the familiar face of Tim de Klerk, holding them steady at a minute and 20 seconds. But I don't think they'll let this gap go out again now. They'll want to keep it on a tight leash when we hit that tailwind section. So the last 20-25 Ks are going to be very, very rapid.
Spain to the left, Portugal to the right. That's how it works in that shot there. And this is what's left of the breakaway, because we're down to 5 riders now. I'll tell you that Daniel Viegas has been dropped. None of these riders, by the way, dangerous in any way in the general classification today. The most, in inverted commas, dangerous is at 17 minutes 22 seconds. So that ain't happening, is it, for Gonçalo Amado in the GC? So these guys posing no threat to yellow jersey or any teams who want to win this race, but they do pose a threat to the team that wants to win the stage. And there'll be several teams joining Soudal Quickstep in that pursuit. That's why, as Matt said, they were just keeping them in check. No panic whatsoever. 1 minute 22, still 63 Ks to go. Premier League bike riders against third division bike riders. This is more than well in control for Soudal Quickstep and the peloton at the moment.
Yeah, it certainly is. I'm just wondering whether, I would imagine that EF Education Easy Post would be more than happy for the break to stay clear and get that time bonus, because Magnus Cort, of course, he has that lead. He's actually pretty quick. I was wondering whether they want to bring it back to let Magnus Cort try and get a few more seconds. And he's never won the overall in a stage race before, but he can time trial pretty well. I was commentating a couple of weeks ago now on Étoile de Bessèges. He was 6th in the final time trial there, so should he survive tomorrow, not lose too much time at all, as long as there aren't any real TT specialists breathing behind him or breathing closely to him. We've got a few, because I think tomorrow's climb might be a little bit more selective. Wouldn't want to rule out Magnus Cort for a tilt at the overall here, because when he needs to, he can ride a very, very good TT, especially if he's got a jersey on his back.
Just wonder if, again, thinking well ahead of ourselves here, but just plant the seed. Could it open in a new sort of chapter in his career? His 1 week stage races and going to try and hang on the couple of difficult days, getting bonus seconds, time trialling well. Is that maybe a new facet, a new bow to, you know, for him to
Who
go?
knows? It's the fact that he just, this journey, he's in the leader's jersey, started out just wanting to win a stage. He finds himself in the leader's jersey. We know how multifaceted he is. It will be key. I think tomorrow will be the big test, because the climb is slightly steeper. It's about the same distance, but it's slightly steeper. And by his own admission, when the climbs get over 7-8%, that's where he might start to falter. So tomorrow will be a big test. But if he gets through tomorrow, who knows?
Tim de Klerk continues to ride. There's Miguel Marco on the right-hand side, and, well, things calm enough at the moment that he can stop for a comfort break before work begins. This is Michał Kwiatkowski, who had plenty of work yesterday, didn't he?
Wow.
First helping out Tim and Arendsman with mechanical, then helping out the whole team. And will they be disappointed after really setting things up yesterday for everybody else?
Yeah. Clearly Tom Pidcock's in great form. He took the 5th place, although he was relegated on the opening stage, and it did look like they were setting it up for him. But again, he gave a little interview post-race and just said it lacked a little bit of experience in that quite complicated finale. I don't think he lacked pace. I just think the positioning was really complex, and that's why, as well as his ridiculous punch that Magnus Cort has, he can think strategically far better than a lot of riders. He looks at the options, can process things very, very quickly, sense opportunities, and kept a very, very cool head. Whereas other riders, you could see there was a lot of hesitation, a lot of riders going a little bit too early. One rider that went way too early, and that's because of his age. Oscar Onley went very, very early, spent 50 metres in the headwind and completely capitulated and was swamped. So getting it right in a headwind takes a lot of race years. You know, there's so many different situations to pass through that ultimately help you learn, and Magnus Cort is a master at that. He's so tactically switched on, senses these opportunities. He's got this real killer instinct about him, as we see. Quite an interesting move here. Is that one of the ABTF riders?
It is, and they missed the breakaway today. Interesting here. Just as one of the riders was caught, Daniel Viegas, who I told you had been dropped from the breakaway, he was caught. And this is one of the riders belonging to AP Hotels and Resorts, Tavida. Now, the clue here might be in that third and final sponsor, because Tavida is where we're heading today.
Yeah, interesting move. Clearly wants to, making Tim de Klerk just work that little bit harder just to get onto the slipstream. Has brought him straight back. Yeah, a puzzling move, because we are entering the final phase of the race now. Things are under control, but to attack off a pace like that, especially when there's a holding pattern, the unwritten rule here is that nobody attacks. So they're just not even glancing across at him. It's a strange little move there, but the pattern of the race has been established. That doesn't mean people can't attack, but you do wonder the reason for doing that. It's a little bit of an experience showing there, and a little bit of annoyance, I think, for Soudal Quickstep. But I know back in the day you'd see riders do that sort of thing and people would start throwing their lunch at them and baguettes and bits of cheese. Oh God, it is quite interesting, but a strange move. And to cross it, these riders are still going pretty strongly here on this fast section of road, so it was always going to be a little bit of a forlorn hope, I think, to get across that one. And yeah, you don't want to criticise riders for attacking, but there's a place, isn't there?
This is interesting as well, because he's attacked when the yellow jersey is stopped for a comfort break.
Even worse. there's nothing in the rule books that says you can't, but there's the unwritten rules, which don't exist. They're not written down. Well, there we go. Ooh, that's a little bit dicey, giving you an insight into how often and how chaotic the back end of the race can be through the convoy there. But yeah, it's not something you do. It's a little bit frowned upon there.
Well, the rider in question from AP Hotels and Resorts, Tavida, again, might have been told to do that, given the fact we are heading to Tavida today, and they have missed the breakaway. But there was a brilliant, almost comical moment there where he was caught straight back by Tim de Klerk. Tim de Klerk turned his head left, uttered a word or two to him. Then there was a shrug of the shoulders from the rider from AP and Hotels and Resorts, Tavida. And then something. Here we go again.
It's gone again.
Then. Can we have a caption competition? I know you're still on social media and very active on it, Matt, so they can direct this at you. But can we have a caption competition then for whatever was said there by both Tim de Klerk and the rider in question?
At least Tim de Klerk just said something. He didn't shout at him or anything. He just glanced across and said a couple of words.
There was a smile there as well, wasn't
exactly.
there? There's no need for getting horrible about it. And like you say, it is a race and he's allowed to attack. There's no rule that says he couldn't, but it is a very strange thing to do.
It is, and clearly what the part of the course we're on now, there's actually a little bit of there's a couple of little climbs coming, only short ones. Well, they've just got over it, actually. They're just going over a short climb. It's then flat for about another 10k. Then we hit a bit of a drag. Then it drops down a couple of little short climbs before we then head towards the coast and turn right. And the only reason that I can think he's doing this is because we've got these 9 continental teams, 9 Portuguese teams operating at the third division of the sport, and you said he's local, so just local roads, wants to get out, get himself on the television, and I think it's as simple as that. And there's not much hope of him succeeding today, but success is viewed differently. I mean, success can be a win for one person, a success can be a nice day up the road for others, especially teams with more modest ambition, I think. So it's too easy to criticise. It's a puzzling move tactically, but I think he just wants to get some airtime for his local team, and maybe he's got some friends and out on the route as well.
Samuel Blanco is a Spanish rider. He's the only Spanish rider in the team, the Portuguese local team from Tavira, where we go to today. He spent all of his career, though, racing for Portuguese teams. Most of his racing is done on the national calendar. So this is a huge race. This is the biggest race of the season for these teams. Let's not forget about it. I mean, there is a Grandíssima, which is the Volta Portugal, we talked about earlier in the week. The 4th Grand Tour, the Hipsters Grand Tour, whatever you want to call it. But it's a big race, a couple of weeks long. But in terms of the competition they're up against, this is the big one. This is where you've got world teams racing, as many as 12 of them to race against.
Yeah, and he's on TV. He's riding well. And you've got to admire his tenacity here after being brought back pretty quickly on the flat, using a climb, smarter move. Looks like a lighter fellow. Clearly, you would imagine knows these roads pretty well, and has now got a little bit of TV time for the local team, which could actually mean a lot. But he's closed a bit of a gap after that initial surge, but closing a minute on his own is going to be a tall order. But let's wish him all the best, because he's started to open up a bit of a lead on the peloton. They're not really worried about him at all. They're just going to ride at the same pace. On the flat before, de Klerk brought him back with a little bit of an acceleration, which wasn't much more effort. But now he's gone clear, they'll just let him get on with it. And if he falters, then he'll come back. But he's shut the gap by a handful of seconds. There we go. Actually, he's built up 45 seconds on the group behind up that climb. So let's see how he goes.
And let's remember that it was comfort break time for most of the peloton, with the yellow jersey going as well. So that explains the breakaway putting time into the yellow jersey group, and that gap having grown to 1 minute and 42 seconds. Yellow jersey looks like he's back now, by the way. Most riders who stopped are returning to the peloton, and this is pretty normal given what is to come. Everything in control, and it's one of the reasons, Matt, to people who are new to bike racing, why they keep it so controlled so early nowadays, because things like this happen. Everybody, of course, has to stop for a comfort break and things like that at this time, has to go and get food and what have you. It just gives them that little bit less work to do later on.
Exactly. And also just the general standard of riding has over the last few years has gone up, so you get a break up the road of riders you might not know too much about, but on home roads, riding with an elevated sense of ambition and occasion, give them a bit of a tailwind, give them 4 or 5 minutes. Hard work to bring them back. Riders move very, very effectively these days, especially riding on home soil. So you're quite right. Add in the other factors that you've just described. They're not taking any chances here. I think it went up to 3 minutes earlier on. That was about the maximum it got, and now they're keeping it on a very, very tight leash. Factoring in as well that tailwind as we head towards the end. So good, solid, textbook riding so far from Soudal Quickstep.
Just over 55 kilometres to go to the conclusion of stage 3 of the Tour of the Algarve. You're looking at the breakaway of the day. -1 rider, Daniel Viegas, has been dropped. The riders remaining are Andrade, Grigorev, Costa. That's Fabio Costa, by the way, because Rui Costa wouldn't be allowed up there, given the fact he is up in the top 3 in the general classification, with Garcia Amado as well. We've had one attacker. That rider came from AP Hotels and Resorts Tavira. Tavira being the town that we finish in today. That particular rider is a Spanish rider, the only Spanish rider in a team full of Portuguese talent. He's Samuel Blanco, 28-year-old from Spain. He's got around 20 seconds on the bunch at the minute, but it looked as though they were on the way to reeling him back in. We just saw Fabio Jakobsen, the latest of the big stars, to stop for a little comfort break before things get Very interesting indeed. And Fabio Jakobsen today, we expect to be in the mix as far as the finale is concerned. Matt, today's finale is one we've had quite a number of times in the last few years. It's expected to be a sprint. We've always had a sprint here, but there's always a little bit of doubt as to who might get there. Not because it's particularly difficult, but we've got roundabouts galore on the way in. We've got crosswind possibilities in the last 20-25 kilometres or so. And there's a right turn with around 400 or 500 metres to go, I think it is, and a slightly uphill finish. It's not always the traditional big run-in where you're going to get everybody there. Someone who makes a mistake, whether it be positioning or going early, is going to miss out.
I think with this tailwind as well, it's going to be a completely different sprint than we saw the other day, with the wind coming from the left-hand side straight into their face. And we saw the bunch all across the road coming into the final 500 metres. Jakobsen, for example, was way back in 15th, 20th place and could afford to do that because of how late the sprint was going to be. Today, they're going to be sprinting into that final corner the best part of 50-60 k's an hour, I would imagine, with that tailwind. And it is relatively complex. So we come through 2 kilometres to go. The road just gently meanders round to the right. Then with about 1,300 metres to go, we hit a roundabout. We swing left. Then we go under the Flamme Rouge. With about 750 metres to go, we then have another roundabout, which we go right around. Then we have 150 metres straight, and then we've got this 90-degree right-hander, and then we have this drag up, and it kicks up. It's about 1% kick into 2.5% to the line, so it's a late kick up to the line, but as you said, it is a drag, and the wind will be coming from their right-hand side there, so really fast tailwind all the way into the final right-hander. Then the wind will be coming from their right, but still in their back, so you'd imagine that they'll be sprinting on the left-hand side to force riders round the right-hand side with the wind. But I think it's going to be a very, very fast sprint, and also because of how quick it is, riders will fancy their chances on going long as well. You get that sense when you just get the different sense of speed riding into a tailwind, and it actually, tailwinds can give you a false sense of security about your ability to stay away. But I do think that fast running might entice 1 or 2 riders who haven't got a sprinter amongst their number to try and go long. And if you carry 2-3 seconds into that final right-hander with the tailwind, you might stay away as well. So yeah, fast, relatively complex last 1,500 metres with that drag to the line. So yeah, with that wind blowing as well, we'll see a completely different shape to the bunch, and expecting Quick-Step to take it up. Well, they're taking it up already, haven't they? But they're going to need to use their resource very well to lead into those final few roundabouts.
UNOX used their own resources to spectacular result on the opening day, didn't they? The man in the green jersey there, Alexander Kristoff, took the yellow jersey on the opening day. He won the stage in the sprint to Lagos. Today we're following the course at the moment of the Guadiana River, the river that separates Portugal and Spain, the Algarve from Andalusia. If you want to cross into Spain, there aren't too many bridges, quite surprisingly, around here. There's one towards Villarreal de Santo Antonio, where we're going to take the right turn in a few kilometres' time. It's called the International Guadiana Bridge. It takes you over to the Spanish city of Huelva a little further on. Home to the oldest football club in Spain, by the way, Huelva Recreativo. Still there. Formed by English industrialists when they went down to the south all of those years ago, well over a century ago, of course. Recre, as they're known now. Been the most successful team going. But staying this side of the border, heading down towards the Atlantic Ocean. And there's a very happy-looking EF Education Easy Post team. Can Bora Hansgrohe do the job today? They've had a couple of good results so far in the finales. Day one, Jordi Meus was up there in second. Yesterday, Jai Hindley wasn't far off either, was he?
He wasn't. He was looking good, and they've now got the best young rider as well, Frederik Vandal, the young rider. He's in the white jersey, now at 17 seconds. So he was the rider that I misidentified coming into the final, didn't he? So they had 3 riders in the front group, as well as Jai Hindley. So they do have a jersey, but Jordi Meus wasn't too far away, and he was carrying a lot of pace. Just left his sprint a little bit too late, didn't he? But he's definitely looking like he might pose a threat today.
The gap's only 45 seconds between the breakaway and the yellow jersey. And somewhere in the middle is our good friend Samuel Blanco. Say our good friend. Only Tim de Klerk's good friend. Thankfully it was all very well-natured. But he's already caught him once, and it looks like he's well on the way to catching him again, and single-handedly too, because it is only Tim de Klerk working here. And he's working rather hard. He is dragging them along at quite the whack.
Yeah, and you can just see, although it's a little bit sheltered, just see the shape of the bunch, one long line, and then of course the group behind, but the wind coming from the left-hand side. You can just see they're overlapping the wheel to the right, showing you that crosswind coming from the left-hand side. So when they hit the coast, they'll swing right, and it'll be right in their back, so we'll see the average speed really shift up. But 45 seconds, yeah, they're not taking any chances at all here. And you could just see the bunch, just as we rounded that corner on this long straight road, you could just see the bunch for the very first time. So they technically have them in their sight. So they're briefly now around this bend, they've gone out of view, but that long straight road there, they did briefly have them in their sight. So some really good riding here by Soudal Quickstep. Still only one rider on the front as well. We haven't seen anybody else take a turn yet, have we? Tim de Klerk, everybody happy for him to stay on the front, more than capable of dragging the bunch along at the same pace as the break in front, and when needs be, he can winch them back in as well. Just shows the engine that man has.
Oh, you're looking at Andalusia on your screen, just across the other side of the water, and a reminder, without giving any spoilers away, that you can see the Vuelta a Andalusia live and on demand each and every day.
No,
and you can see it, of course. No spoilers. We're trying our best. It's of course on GCN Plus and across Eurosport and the Warner Brothers Discovery Sports platforms. Also on GCN Plus this week, you've got the first episode of a brand new series of the world of cycling, talking about crashes and how dangerous professional cycling is or isn't at the moment. There's some excellent insight, the likes of Tom Southam and Ian Field joining Dan Lloyd. And we've got plenty of interviews and reactions and inputs from some of the top names in the world of cycling. So the world of cycling started again. And guess what? Killian Kelly's back as well with his stat attack. All the way from Ireland. He'll be telling you things that you didn't know and maybe didn't even need to know. But I tell you what, we'll be learning them anyway. It's always a real adventure watching that show every week. I really enjoyed the last couple of years, and make sure you get on GCN Plus and have a good watch. And one final nod in the direction of something that the man alongside me can tell you a lot more about, because he'll be working on it. It is, of course, the Esports World Championships. We had European Champions jerseys up for grabs, didn't we, the other week? That was on the track. There are rainbow jerseys and digital rainbow jerseys available this weekend, Matt. Yeah, from 1800, that's British time, or GMT, you can watch the Cycling Esports World Championships, the third edition, to tie in with Glasgow, Scotland. So it's the route on Zwift is a route that's been created uniquely for the World Championships, based around Scotland. And it's rather than a scratch race that we've seen over the last couple of years on Zwift, it is an elimination style event, 3 short, punchy races with an elimination element to it. So it's going to be quite exciting. 3 routes: the punch, the climb and the podium. 3 races, both for the men's and the women's. And the last one, there'll be 10 riders left fighting it out on the streets of Glasgow. So make sure you watch out for that. I'll be with Nathan Guerra on the mic, Hannah Walker and Dan Lloyd will be in the studio. Should be fun. And I think Matt Stevens has been down the trademark shop. If not, I hope he has, because he coined a brilliant phrase the other day. I suggested it was like an Omnium event, and Matt said no, it is a digital Omnium.
A digital Omnium. Yeah, it should be great. Real. Each race around 15 minutes, Rob. So it's really tried to separate itself out. I think it was a little bit too much like the road, but now they're trying to really separate it out as we head back into the real world, and a couple of accelerations here. This is this little trio of small hills we were talking about that we're just rolling onto now.
It takes us away from the border with Spain and into the hills. Ever so slightly southwest now before they go south again, and then southeast towards Villarreal de Santo Antonio, before we head west definitively towards Tavira. And this is the breakup of that group. So at the back, a couple of riders really struggling now, one of them being Gonzalo Amado. The man putting the pace on is from Glass Drive Q8 Anicolor, and that's Fabio Costa. And there is the Guadiana River that I was talking about, right on the border between Portugal on the right-hand side of your picture, where we're racing, and Spain on the left. Two regions of Algarve in Portugal, Andalusia in Spain. But the entire road here, the entire route, stays entirely within Portuguese territory. So no crossing to Spain today. And of course, no need to. As I mentioned, we've already got the VOLTA Andalusia on. So we've got that bit of region covered, haven't we, on our screens this week? Because look at this from Costa.
It's lovely,
Fabio Costa. Grigorev can't hold it.
Yeah. Clearly knows these roads pretty well. Is pretty confident. Grigorev got back on, and then he's just gone again, isn't he? And those little accelerations have opened up the lead again. So 1 minute and 2 seconds. It was 45 at the bottom of this climb. This is quite a nasty climb, but the bottom part was around 10%. And you can see the peloton won't be too far away. Probably best part of 750 metres, roughly, at the speed they're riding at in terms of distance on the road. But the next 9 or 10 kilometres are on quite undulating terrain. They climb up onto this plateau, this little ridge, drop off, kick up again, then kick up again before we approach the final sprint of the day. That comes at 24.6 kilometres to go. And the peloton here won't really push on. They'll push on over the top and on the flatter sections, but on the climb itself, they'll just knock it off a little bit, keep everybody together, and then pick up over the top. Tim de Klerk knows how to ride this terrain, and they won't need to react at all. Despite the gap going up, because of the very fine efforts of Fabio Costa, they'll just do what they need to do behind. But this is a solo bid for glory, a bit of TV time, and he's certainly put the rest in hurt locker. Opened up a good gap, looking good, isn't he?
23 years of age from Emerzinda in Portugal. He ran for the same team for the last couple of seasons, but he's been around the block on Portuguese teams. He's been with FAPL as well, which is the team that wear the orange jersey. The rider who he just dropped, actually, Grigorev, who's behind. Also ridden for Liberty Seguros, and the Kelly team, which are here this week and who currently have the rider in the King of the Mountains jersey, Antonio Ferreira. Behind Matt, those who were dropped seem to have got organised together.
Yeah, it drops down a little bit now, so once they've got together, they'll keep them in their sights, and they will keep riding together. And also they'll be fully aware that the gap has gone up again, giving themselves not exactly a fighting chance, but they'll just spend a few more kilometres out in front, and they will try and reel this man back in. I would imagine they'd know him pretty well. His best ride over recent years is a bronze medal in the National Road Championships last year. So he's a talented bike rider, and it does look like they're gradually wheeling him back in.
Into the final 50 kilometres now. Last little bit of climbing this for the next 15 to 20 Ks. Inland into the hills, and over 2,000 metres to climb today. Of course, it isn't flat completely, but most of the climbing was done early on. We climbed up to the Portela de Corcha and then to Cachopo. And I'm not talking about the famous Asturian dish. This is the Portuguese town version at the top of the hill. That's where we had the second and final King of the Mountains climb. Both of those today were taken by Alexander Grigorev, who's moved himself up into 4th place in the mountains classification. But it's been the same pattern for the whole day, and we expect this on sprint days and expected sprint days. Soudal quick step with Fabio Jakobsen, the European champion. And just behind those pink jerseys, looking after the yellow jersey, EF Education Easy Post leading a race for the second time this season. If you remember, down under in Australia, it was their Italian star, the Ronde of Vlaanderen winner from a few years ago, Alberto Bettiol, who took the jersey and had it for a couple of days. So the second time they lead a stage race. But of course they've won a stage race, haven't they, without leading it. If you think back to the other week in France, Nielsen Paulus took victory, didn't he, on the final day with a strong time trial, not winning a stage, but being the strongest rider overall in Bessèges. Yeah,
it was a great ride. Won it by a single second from Matthias Skelmos Jensen of Trek. Overturned, I think it was, they had a 4-second deficit going into the final TT and beat Skelmos Jensen by 5 seconds. So took it by just 1 slender second for his first ever stage race win, and making it 2 wins this year for the American. He did look really impressive, actually, climbing so well, and they've had, I think, probably one of their best starts ever. I think not gone back and combed through, but they've they have had problems in the past, haven't they, or seasons where it's taken them a while to get that first victory registered. But this year they're absolutely flying. As you said, multiple national championships, but also big race wins too, across the board. Not just there's wins across the board. 2, of course, for the aforementioned American. But good win yesterday. It really was. This team is on fire. They really are. Exciting team to watch.
Another team comes up to the front of the peloton with Trek Segafredo having moved up there in their red and white jerseys. It's the yellow and black of Fabio Costa, wearing 214 at the minute, the Portuguese rider, who leads this. 45 kilometres to the finish line in Tavira. Just approaching the top of this plateau now. The plateau remains more or less the same, the elevation, but you can just see dips and rises the road all the time. And then we really do hit the flat just before we get back to Villarreal, Santo Antonio and the seaside again.
Yeah, they pretty much on the flat bit on the top, as you said, Rob. They drop down. There's a short little steep climb. They've got 2 little steep climbs before the intermediate sprint. And the way they're riding at the moment, I would imagine, well, saying that, they've got 20 kilometres still to ride in this crosswind. So I'm wondering if they will. I think they will stay away. I think they'll be allowed their headway. I don't think Soudal Quickstep and the rest of the sprint teams will want to open it up. It could get a bit complicated in that tailwind. We could start to see some attacks. So I think they'll want to keep this together. Keep them. They won't want it to go up to 2 minutes. Put it this way, with that tailwind finish. Although there's still plenty of resource in this peloton, but they'll want to keep it at about a minute or so. So I do think that break, if they do bring back the sole rider in front, should stay clear until the final intermediate sprint of the day. And you never know, this lad actually might be going for that intermediate sprint. There's a few Euros with it as well. And also, all eyes are on him too. So he's doing a great ride so far with those golden shades. But he hasn't got much of a lead on those 4 riders chasing, has he? But he's certainly looking good.
He's not been having a chat with Richard Carapaz, has he?
He might have done.
Tell you what, you've got to be a good bike rider to wear gold glasses, haven't you?
I'll tell you what EF Education Easy Post have done this year with Carapaz's kit's quite nice. It's quite understated. So on the black shorts, rather than pink writing or white writing, it's just gold writing for the logos. And just the underside of his helmet is gold. So it's very, there's touches, but it's not too ostentatious. I quite like it.
Have you seen they're going to have to change that, though, because he's now the national champion?
National and Olympic champion, blimey. It's a design headache right there. I bet they're having fun with that one.
But just in the back of the shot, while we're talking about that, there's a picture of that brilliant Eritrea national champions jersey as well. And to say that EF Education Easy Post, while we wait for some proper racing to happen, their sponsors do a great job with the national champions jerseys, don't they? And there's quite a few of them. I think Stefan de Bod won the South African TT Championship as well the other day. I mentioned it briefly the other day, but the designers are going to have quite a bit of extra work this year.
Yeah, Colombian national champion, Ecuadorian national champion, as you say. I'm trying to think if we've actually missed anybody out. There's probably some others as well, but no. Some lovely looking kit. But yeah, this lad's gone for gold shades. So he was obviously on, feeling like it was going to be his day today. But he's only got about 5 or 10 seconds on that group behind. It's always hard in a bit of a cross headwind as well. Tim de Klerk knows all about that.
De Klerk from West Flanders, one of the windiest places in Europe.
Oh yeah. Just looking at a few of the other riders who might figure today. I was just combing back through, Rob, the top 10 on the opening stage. Won by Christoph, Jordi Moos in second, Verensol, the lead-out rider, holding on for third there, Jakobsen in fourth. Bittner to look out for. Also, Paul Pennewitt, the rider from Groupama FDJ. We thought they'd be looking after Jake Stewart, but he's coming back from that injury. So watch out from Pennewitt, who sprinted really well into that headwind. Tisfatsion, any time it comes to a gallop, generally rolls top 10, doesn't he? Whether it's a hilly finish or a flat finish. And also Timo Kilic of Alpecin de Koenig, not the rider we had down. It looks like he's going to be their designated sprinter. So a couple of names we didn't mention straight off the bat on day one, but certainly ones to consider today, especially if they go a little bit long and play a canny one.
Who's going to follow the big names who've won in Tavira? Kees Bol, Marcel Kittel, Dylan Groenewegen, André Greipel, Sam Bennett. Not a bad list of fast riders, is it?
Not bad, is it? No, not bad at all.
Well, here you've got Christoph and Jakobsen leading the charge. Matt's just mentioned a few other names as well. Jordi Meus has been up there. Interesting to see how things go today. We're just 42.5 kilometres from the conclusion of today's stage, and with a gap at just 1 minute and 25 seconds from the front of the race to the yellow jersey, currently on the back of Magnus Cort, and I think we expected to stay on the back of Magnus Cort unless there's some sort of incidents. We have an intermediate sprint to come after we've been on the dual carriageway. This is a bit of a disappointment, isn't it?
Yeah, they're just catching one of the riders that's been dropped. You can just see for the first time, Soudal Quickstep have actually just taken themselves off the front, putting the team of the race leader, EF Education, Easy Post, back on the front here. Just swinging into headwind for a little bit. It does snake. This road, although it's heading in a southerly direction towards the coast before we swing directly west, it does swing to the left and to the right. And as you can see by the shape of the bunch, this is a cross headwind rather than a cross tail. And another one of these uphill drags as well, as another member of the breakaway is caught.
That's Samuel Blanco, the man who went on that little adventure. Hello again. He's caught, and Marco Haller is there to take a drink or two.
Yeah, we've got Julius van den Berg on the front now from the Netherlands for EF Education. Now, the way they've taken this up here, are they going to try and put Magnus Cort in a position to go for the intermediate sprint? They've still got 17 Ks, and look at this big road. This is an awful road to be away on your own, isn't it? Although he's doing a good job, this lad. He's opened up the gap, 15 or 20 seconds it is, on the group behind him, up this long drag. There's the peloton at the top of your screen. Probably the best part of a kilometre between the two now. Almost like a runway, isn't it?
The roller coaster of the day. We go straight down into the dip. And then it's going to hurt when you get about halfway up and the momentum stops.
It's horrible.
1 minute 20. And the bonus seconds chat is an interesting one, Matt, because there are 6 bonus seconds. Just one intermediate sprint this year, isn't there, on the stages? So they've added the 2 up, usually 3 and 3, but 6 bonus seconds, and placing it fairly close to the end of stages, making it a little bit more interesting. There's more of a carrot dangled, isn't there, to those who want to take bonus seconds. And given the fact that we've got another mountain tomorrow, but never usually a hugely selective one either, we don't see big, huge time differences generally, then a long time trial on Sunday. Every second does count. 6 bonus seconds, if he can get them. Magnus Cort's not going to turn his nose up at those, is he?
Yeah, it's just a lot of... The longer this goes on and the gap doesn't come down, there's no real... You can see that EF have just moved to the front, but they've not moved to the front and really picked up the pace. They've just kept it at the same speed, give or take, that was being set initially by Tim de Klerk, all on his own. And the gap is holding, still 1 minute and 20 seconds. And if they wanted to bring it back, they'd need to start now, because they're moving pretty quickly on this undulating bit of road with that wind coming from the left-hand side. I think had the gap been a little bit closer, they might have wanted to try and bring them back to give it to Magnus Cort. But you look at the overall, Cort leads, Van Wilde is at second place at 4 seconds, and then we've got Rui Costa. What you may see if it does come back is that Soudal Quickstep actually put one of their fast men in the mix as well to sprint against Magnus Cort, so he doesn't take time from Van Wilde. Rui Costa's got a couple of other... They might put Mads Mikkels, for example, the Estonian, who's their fastest rider here, just to try and take it. So I think it's too much of an investment to potentially lose out. So I think they're just going to do what they need to do because they've got the jersey, ride it until the sprinters teams take things, because they might as well just keep the status quo the same. So I don't think they will bring it back. Had the gap been a little bit narrower, I think they might have done. But there's some other fast riders from other teams who could possibly beat the yellow jersey in a flat sprint. So I think they're just going to keep this holding pattern for the next 20 Ks, I think.
You'd imagine that none of the fast guys who want to win the stage would go for it, because it's too close to the finish, isn't it?
Exactly.
So it would be tactical riding, is what you're saying, from other teams to prevent Cort from getting those seconds, rather than the likes of Christoph and Jakobsen and people like that going for the sprint.
Oh, totally. I mean, look at Soudal Quickstep, for example. They could use someone like Casper Pedersen, for example, who's very, very quick in a straight line, has already had a victory this year. They wouldn't, of course, want to use Fabio Jakobsen. And as I said, the other teams have got riders that I think would challenge Magnus Cort in a flat sprint. So I do think it's going to stay together. I do think this break will stay out in front, take the bonus seconds. As you can see, the kilometres now are ticking along really quite quickly, only 38 k's to go. And we have 12 kilometres now to that sprint.
Fabio Costa still out in the front. He has 4 chasers. And then there's about 150 chasers. 50 seconds is the time gap at the minute. I'm going to suggest it's a little lower than that now. They're moving here. EF Education easy post at the front. One by one, swallowing up the remnants of the breakaway. They are committed, they are riding, things are moving, and it's gone to half a minute.
Maybe it looks, well, in a very, very short space of time, Rob, since I ended my sentence saying they weren't going to be chasing them down, it looks like they are. Classic Stevens commentary there, mate. So it looks like they might bring them back.
Maybe Juan Magarate is listening to you in the car and saying, you know, let's have a bit of fun here.
That's it, yeah. Let's bring it back just to prove a point. But no, a good bit of riding here by Julius van den Berg. And again, given the wind direction as well, given how long these riders have been out in front on this long open bit of exposed road, although he's still got 44 seconds, our chap, right at the front. I think they're going to bring him back. They are moving very, very quickly indeed, and very effectively. So perhaps they do fancy the chances.
That's never been 44 seconds in a month of Sundays anyway. That's better. It starts to correct itself
half a minute or so, yeah.
Oh, it's hurting. It's hurting. Swallow me up, please. He's putting the real effort here as Fabio Costa, but the adventure's not far from its end, you feel?
Yeah. It was a good effort, though. Certainly got a nice bit of TV time for the best part of half an hour, 40 minutes. And he's a protagonist. They can look back and said, we tried something today. And that's what these smaller teams come here to do. They know they're relatively limited. It is a classy field here. Remember, 12 World Tour teams are here, some of the best riders in the world. And right now, the Kelly team, for example, have the mountains jersey. So if you get out in breakaways, you will get your rewards. And they have been the focus. And imagine how dull racing would be, Rob, if some of these smaller teams didn't get involved and get up the road and animate the day. It would be very, very dull, wouldn't it?
We do a lot of homework as it is, Matt, but dear me. Could be studying night, evening, day, morning. You'd be learning special facts to tell us.
I'd have to do a Wikipedia deep dive. Yeah.
So 36 k's to go. We've been on the dual carriageway, the motorway. The only time we've been on such roads, thankfully, in the Algarve. We've skirted the border with Spain today after being in the hills. We left the capital Faro at the beginning of the day, and now we're heading back towards the border, back towards the sea, and then towards Tavira. There's a little conversation between Merhawi Kudus and his leader, Magnus Cort. They've looked after him well today. They are serious about their business here. They are one of the informed teams at the start of this season, and EF Education Easy Post are off to hunt for more glory. They've got less than half a minute now to catch the one remaining rider from the breakaway, and we're approaching the point where there might be an opportunity to take 6 bonus seconds at today's intermediate sprint.
Yep. Well, some of the other teams are going to be very clear now. Okay, so it looks like they're trying to ride this back before the intermediate sprint. We've got, just over 10 k's, as you said, Rob. 24.6 is the sprint point. And when we had those aerial shots, it gave us a glimpse of the shape of the bunch. They're on this downhill section, as you can see. A little bit of crosswind as well. So teams making sure that... and look at the way that EF are riding as well. The wind's coming from the left, so what do? They ride on the right-hand side, so it makes it harder for the riders at the back. So they're the team that have got the leader. They're setting the pace at the moment, and they're doing the right thing and just keeping it a little bit to the right-hand side. Obviously, when they need to cut the apex to do the racing law, they'll move to the left. Otherwise, they keep it over to the right. And we saw a couple of line-outs there when it got quite exposed, just showing you how strong this wind is. And we're moving along quite nicely there. Best part of 80 k's an hour. It's over 50 miles an hour now for the bunch.
Just saw that last helicopter shot, a suspension bridge over to the left-hand side. That's the bridge that I was telling you about early on, the one that helps you to cross from Portugal to Spain and vice versa, from the Algarve to Andalusia. The International Guadiana suspension bridge. Riders won't be crossing it today. They'll continue south here, and then they will reach Villarreal de Santo Antonio. That's where we'll have the intermediate sprint. 6 bonus seconds are available. There's a right turn once we get there. And then, Matt, I think you were saying tailwind after that.
Yeah, looking at the wind direction. I've got my windy app open to give you some bang-up-to-date information, and it is still blowing in the same direction. So it is blowing from east to west at around 30 kilometres an hour. So the last 25 k's of this race are going to be very, very quick indeed, as it pushes them all. And I'd say it's a tailwind, but as they swing a little bit further south towards Tavira, it's a tail crosswind, and they are riding right along the coast as well. So could be quite interesting if some teams really want to take it up, be a little bit disruptive. We shall see. So I think we'll see a lot of the GC teams making sure that their GC riders are at or near the front as we head into the final 25 k's of today's stage. So 9 k's now until that intermediate sprint. And let's look at João Almeida, looking pretty comfy.
Portuguese national champion on Portuguese roads, João Almeida. There he is. The UAE Emirates are having quite the start to the season. Certainly the last week or so, things have really sprung to life with some of their big names returning. And here they are at this race with Almeida as their main leader. Of course, one disappointment this week has been the injury to Mark Hirschi. He's going to be out with a broken arm for, we believe, the best part of 2 months.
Yeah.
That's the initial prognosis anyway.
Yeah, his right forearm, wasn't it, on his radius. So a big shame. That's quite a long time out, isn't it?
Well, especially with the Ardennes Classics approaching. He might not miss them, but he won't be on the form, I think, or won't have the preparation that he wanted. But then again, you know, Matt Heyman, Paris-Roubaix, there's always hope, isn't there?
Oh, definitely. And he'll have the best sort of support as well to make sure that he's in the best place. Of course, some of these riders, as soon as they can, they'll be straight on the home trainer, just knocking out the miles. Eddie Dunbar, another rider who's broken a bone in his hand. He's obviously his team aren't riding here, Jaco Lula, but he's spending a lot of time on the turbo as well.
Fabio Costa's solo adventure from the original 6-man breakaway is about to come to an end. It's Mark Padun here of Ukraine and EF Education Easy Post chasing him down. Just on his wheel, the number 27, Julius Vonenberg. Following that, number 23, Owain Doel. Also there is 21, Stefan Bissiger. And then you get to the man wearing number 22 and the yellow jersey. Magnus Cort, winner yesterday in sensational style on the Alto da Folla. Today he is the leader of the Volta Algarve, and the Tour of the Algarve has a Dane in charge. It should be the case today. Question is, can he add to his lead by taking bonus seconds at an intermediate sprint that's approaching? We're just less than 33 kilometres to the conclusion of the day in Tavira on the coast. We're heading to Villarreal Santo Antonio, right on the border with Spain. And in fact, at the base of your shot there, across the water, beyond the bridge, is Spanish land. We turn right here and head towards the sea. We stay in Portugal, and it's in Portugal that they're looking for these 6 bonus seconds. Yes, 6 bonus seconds at the intermediate sprints here in the Algarve. A big number for Magnus Cort to try and do his best. And, you know, people might be sitting at home here, what's Hatchie on about? 6 seconds being a big number? Matt, this is a 5-day race, and it's a race that's often decided by the narrowest of margins, as Fabio Costa is caught, and we're all back together.
We are indeed. No, brave effort by Costa out in front. It is as you were, Gruppo Compatto, to coin the Italian phrase, and so this is now opened the race up again. And Wilde, there we go, Van Wilde, the rider that finished in second place yesterday. He's got not a bad little gallop on him, but I don't think in a straight line on a flat bit of road he'd be quicker than Magnus Cort Nielsen. So here...
It wasn't yesterday.
No, he wasn't. He wasn't. I mean, it was... I do feel so sorry for him. And people said, oh, he put his arm up before the line. And he said, no, I didn't. I put my arm up on the line. And I think he's right. He didn't actually celebrate until he'd crossed the line. But unfortunately, out of his sight on the inside was the eventual race winner, Magnus Cort Nielsen, of course. So, yeah, he's going to put that behind him. Really talented, but it would have been his first ever pro win. But now, given the situation here, they've got to ride defensively. Which rider are they going to pick? I would imagine they might even use Casper Pedersen to go for a sprint to try and take that. They cannot not react to him, because Van Wilde has already stated post-race he's going to try and win this race, and he's not a bad TT rider as well. We've got tomorrow's selective finish again, a hilltop finish, slightly steeper climb to the line tomorrow, and then the TT, long TT as well, 25 kilometres on the final day to ultimately decide this race. But we're now going to see in 6K's time another mini battle unfurl. And how will some of these teams play it? What will Intermarché do? They don't want to hand Magnus Cort any more time than they need to. So we'll see how teams play this one. So there'll be some interesting discussions going along with team captains and the DSs in the car on how they're going to, which riders are going to fight with Magnus Cort Nielsen for the sprint. So this is going to be quite an interesting one.
I was interesting enough watching them under the bridge there. Which side of the road do you pick?
EF have chosen the correct one. They've got the slightly shorter line there. They're probably shaved off about 5 metres, slightly shorter by going on the left. It's always horrible when you get caught the wrong side of the split there. Trek Segafredo well grouped on the left-hand side. Again, given this tailwind, this tail crosswind that we're getting, mostly a tailwind, but still coming from the side at some exposed parts, all the teams here making sure they're disciplined. The colour blocking is completely changed. Everybody riding together now, because this could be potentially quite a dangerous part of the race as we head into the line. Exposed to the sea from the left-hand side, very strong winds. There's a couple of little rights. We do a shimmy left and then a shimmy right before we head out to the sprint now.
This is the town of Castromarim. Castle in the background, the centre part of this little town. Imagine with the sun shining, that looks absolutely tremendous. The salt flats below. Bit more of a fight for the road here as Castro Viejo appears on the left-hand side as we look at it there. On the right, you could just see as well Intermarché were getting involved. And remember, Rui Costa is going to be really interested in those bonus seconds. And this is Castromarim's nature reserve down the bottom.
I also think we might see one of the way Ineos are riding there. That, again, they're moving up to the front. Jonathan Castroviejo having a look round Kwiatkowski. I'm wondering if they're going to set up maybe Ganna or even Tom Pidcock. It depends on who's their designated leader for this race. I think a lot will obviously be determined by tomorrow's stage if we see some of the TT riders lose a little bit of time. But Ganna's still in the frame, and we know how quick he can wind it up. So we might actually see several teams going for these time bonuses here.
On big TT man watch, by the way. We saw yesterday, didn't we, that Bissiger pulled the pin. He wasn't that interested in it in the end. He's got other things to look at, and of course we know why now, given the fact they were going for the stage with Magnus Cort. But Filippo Ganna, I mentioned it right at the end of yesterday's coverage. You could just see him coming in a shot and fighting for every second. He's at only 17 seconds from the lead that is occupied by Magnus Cort right now. And Stefan Küng also just 5 seconds further back at 22 seconds. So they're in the mix with the Alto de Maial still to come. Now, Maial is normally a shorter climb, but steeper climb than the one we saw yesterday. And we do a couple of laps usually as well.
Yep, could suit Magnus Cort Nielsen. He'll certainly try, that's for sure. With the power of the yellow jersey on his back. Rui Costa as well, just moving into a place there. Sam Oman on the right-hand side there for Jumbo-Visma. Their best placed rider, of course, Tobias Foss. He sits at only 12 seconds. So he was right in the mix at that sprint yesterday. In fact, he sits in 6th place overall. And we know he can get over the climbs. We talked about his stage race prowess. 9th in the Giro back in 2021, current TT World Champion. So the way they're massing here, 3Ks to go now to this sprint, Rob. Difficult to call, but Magnus Cort is certainly going to go for it, you would imagine.
Trek Segafredo up there as well. Bauke Mollema remains their best placed rider, but Nathanael Tesfatsion at 29 seconds is also an interesting rider. He was involved in the bunch sprint on day one, survived fairly well yesterday. Keep your eyes on Groupama FDJ. You've already mentioned Paul Pinouet. Should be looking for the stage win today. He's not going to be interested in any bonus seconds. Of course, he's at 16:55. There's Edward Turns alongside Rui Costa. And Merawi Kudus just getting the call from Costa there. Colleagues who've raced in the bunch together for a long, long time. And this is why there was the nature reserve. Take a look at that.
The flamingos.
They certainly are. You see them the other side of the border down in the Doñana National Park in Spain. But here we are in Portugal.
They're moving pretty quickly, aren't they?
All the focus on Rui Costa for the Marche in Portugal. Tobias Foss, their world time trial champion. And Groupama FDJ with those dark blue jerseys they're wearing this year towards the front as well. Their best placed rider in the general is Valentin Madouas at 10 seconds. Imagine he'd be thinking about more around tomorrow. Certainly punchy climb lends itself to his own possibilities and capabilities, really, as we get into Castro Marim. Left turn coming up here, and it's a real fight for that left turn.
Yep. Another team just came up on the left-hand side. You couldn't quite see who it was from that side, but there was a big surge on the left-hand side. We've only got now about 1,800 metres into the sprint. 24.6 is the sprint point. So about a K and a half now. Still EF Education on the front. So Owen Dool doing a big turn.
Dool, who has that left elbow bandaged up. Top rider from Wales, and look at this, he's doing a big job here. Let's try and move up and move around. Alpecin de Koning also interested in getting their man Conchi maybe in to try and take something. Zbaralji's right up there as well. You can see several riders. Zandro Murderser is involved. Quinten Hermons on the left hand side is on the wheel of Murderser. You can see that Van Wilder is trying to follow and do what he can. Kudus is still there to help Magnus Cort if he can. Left-hand side, you can see Kwiatkowski moving up and trying to do something. They are all over the road here as Rui Costa is there on his own now and just following the wheels. Yeah,
this is going to be a little mini bunch sprint, isn't it? 1,100 metres now to the sprint. Ilan van Wilder was dropped off. You just see there, they just dropped him off in position. I don't think he's got a rider now to lead him out. They've left him to his own devices. And if he does take this and Magnus Cort doesn't score, he will move himself into the lead. 4 seconds is the lead, remember, for Magnus Cort Nielsen over the young Belgian.
And here we go, onto the cobbles. It's like something we're racing in a month's time. And you can see on the left-hand side that Rui Costa's now been dropped off. There's a gap forming. Van Wilder's not going to be involved in this. Tom Pidcock certainly is. And you can see here at the front that Magnus Cort is following. This is top stuff from the Ineos Grenadiers, trying to set things up for Tom Pidcock, who's after the bonuses and after those 6 seconds available. Look behind as well, because behind you can see that Tobias Foss is moving and trying to move up as well. He's wearing 63 in the yellow jersey, but it is the yellow jersey who comes to the front, and Magnus Cort with the explosivity, with the pace, is going to romp home to those 6 seconds. It's 6 seconds to Magnus Cort, 4 seconds go to Rui Costa, and I think 2 there are taken by Tom Pidcock.
Yeah, great lead out there by Philip Ogana. You could see the riders just struggling. As soon as he went to the front, they opened up the gap. A couple of riders who just were completely gapped there. But I tell you what, Magnus Cort Nielsen is absolutely flying. He went past Tom Pidcock, almost like he was standing still. That was some sprint, that really was. But a great lead out by Philip Ogana. So he's extended his lead on the overall now to 10 seconds over Ilan Wilder.
Interesting here as well behind. There was Cort just waiting, ready to be caught again. There was a little word from Tobias Foss saying, come on, mate, let's go and let's give this a quick whack to see what happens, because they're carrying on riding.
Is this sprint again? Look at that. He opened up quite early, didn't he? Actually caught Pidcock unawares. Don't think he expects him to come from behind with such pace. But look at that. With every pedal stroke, he's moving clear. Good time bonus there for Rui Costa as well, though.
It was Ganna, wasn't it, who was setting him up there with that move. You can see on the left as we look at it, Pidcock go through the centre on the cobbles. Brilliantly done by the leader. And again, Rui Costa, what form he has.
Good sprint that was by Costa. He'll be pretty happy. Remember, he started the day in 3rd place at 6 seconds. He would have now moved over Ilan van Wilde by 2, so he's moved into 2nd place, although he's actually slightly further back than he was on Magnus Court. But that one sprint has seen, well, this is it, and they're riding this one. This is fantastic stuff here. Some of the big race favourites now away, including Filippo Ganna. So this is going to add a little bit of pressure to behind. Still a long way to go, 23Ks to go. But the sprint teams now need to bring this back. Exciting stuff.
It looks as though they're well on the way to bringing it back here with a big effort behind. But that was that moment. No, this is the second group actually on the road.
Yeah.
This is a second group on the road, so just keep your eye on this. We've got the Tudor team who we've not seen, and you can see somebody's trying to come across now for UAE Emirates. This is Tobias Foss, and I was just talking about that little word that Tobias Foss had with Magnus Court, said, come on, let's give this a go.
Why not?
They did, and this is what they've got. They've got 23Ks to the line, so it's still sort of in buying a lottery ticket territory here, isn't it, rather than anything else. But Soudal Quickstep, Bora Hansgrohe are going to have to work for this alongside Uno X if they want to set up a sprint.
This is great. I think Valentin Madouas is in this group as well. So Madouas is there. He's driving hard. They've got Filippo Ganna, Tom Pidcock, the race leader, Magnus Cort Nielsen, former world time trial champion, Filippo Ganna. They've got some serious engines in this group, and they are working. UAE have missed it. Soudal Quickstep have missed it as well, and Uno X. So the big sprint teams are going to have to combine, and I think they might get a bit of a hand from UAE Team Emirates as well. The gap is opening. 22.9 Ks to go. This is going to be a very rapid last few Ks.
Yves Oliveira cannot hack the pace, and if he can't do as one of the top rouleurs in the UAE Emirates team, they're going to need all the help they can get. They're heading back towards the seaside. This is Valentin Madouas. Just in front of him, Tobias Foss. Then you've got Rui Costa, Tom Pidcock, Filippo Ganna and Magnus Cort. What a group.
It's great, isn't it? Some of the finest time trialists you're likely to see. Well, this is just a group royale. It's a real classy group. And Pidcock there couldn't quite get on the wheel there. Ganna slots in the gap. Great wheel to sit on, though. The slight figure of Tom Pidcock behind there, the man mountain that is Filippo Ganna, and you can see the right turn now. That's when they'll pick up this tailwind. The wind will be right in their back, and the gap, I'd estimate, is only about 10-15 seconds here, Rob.
And just look at the front of this bunch. You've got the pink jerseys of EF Education Easy Post, rather cleverly, just blocking, just interfering with the chase. This is going to be fascinating if this gap holds for a while, certainly with the tailwind coming up, and the quality of riders we have in the group at the front. We're into the final 22 kilometres. It's day 3 in the Algarve, and Soudal Quickstep have quite the task at hand. This is Filippo Ganna. He's with his teammate Tom Pidcock. In the blue there, you've got Valentin Madouas, the race leader wearing 22 in the yellow jersey. That's Magnus Cort. Then Rui Costa, former world champion. And at the back here, the world time trial champion of the moment, Tobias Foss. They all formed a little bit of a splint a few kilometres ago. That's because they were going for the intermediate sprint. That was won by Magnus Cort, who extended his lead in the GC. But behind, they were missed and caught out. And this main bunch that includes all the big sprinters, the likes of Fabio Jakobsen and Jordi Meus, are having to work hard and work together to make sure that they pull this back.
And they can't just set a tempo here, Rob, either. They need to chase it. It's different. Like, you've got a group at 10-15 seconds, we're going to hold them. You don't want to hold a group like that. You really, really don't. There's still a lot of firepower behind. Remember, we haven't even talked about Bora Hansgrohe with Jordi Meus as well. So Bora Hansgrohe could assist Soudal Quickstep along with UAE.
They're doing it right now.
They need to.
That's Niels Pollitt right at the front.
Exactly. They cannot afford to let this go out. They need to bring it back as quickly as possible. Although we do have 21 and a bit kilometres to go, they're going to... It's the amount of time you spent on the road at these sorts of speeds, so they haven't got as much time. It's all about time. But this group are on the very, very limit here. You could just see the body language of Pidcock after that turn on the front, slotting onto the wheel of Gannet. This is full throttle bike racing here. Great to see. Magnus Cort Nielsen extending the lead, and they've got the tractor on front. Look at this long line out, and look at the face and the body language now of Tim de Klerk. Completely different than before. They know the class, the calibre, the power in that front group. They have to bring back 23 seconds now, Rob.
There's some really interesting tactical decisions being made here as well. Have you noticed, Matt? There's no Uno X working here. They've already won a stage this week. They've got the points jersey with Christoph. I just get the feeling they are waiting, making Soudal Quickstep and Bora Hansgrohe do the work. And if they bring it back together, they'll have reduced power in their own lead-out trains, and UNX are ready to pounce.
I think you're quite right. It's the smart thing to do. So there we go. This is the best young rider, Fredrik Vandal, on at the front now, driving hard. Just behind him, Kasper Asgreen. So all of the troops are being deployed on the front here. This is one long line, 23 seconds, so they're holding steady. Tim de Klerk has gone now, his job is done. Remember, he's been riding all day, and it's moving back very, very quickly. Another 2 seconds have been taken now, so I do think at the moment that Uno X, they're playing brinkmanship, but it's a smart thing to do. Deplete the resource that Soudal Quickstep have around Jakobsen, and then do exactly what they did the other day, pick it up in the last couple of Ks, but have strength in number and relatively fresh legs to take them through into the final. So very, very interesting. Michał Kwiatkowski there saying to the motorbike, move away. Well, look at this long line.
It's at 21 seconds right now, and Kwiatkowski wants to help his teammates who are up the road. He does not want the peloton to have the advantage of drafting that television motorcycle there and getting that little bit of an easier ride. This is Rui Costa at the front. Behind him in the yellow and black is Tobias Voss. Then the two teammates that Michał Kwiatkowski was trying to protect there. They are Filippo Ganna and the man who went for those bonus seconds. Got two in the end, Thomas Pidcock. Sensational development really on day three here, because it's always a sprint in Tavira, and it might still be, but we don't usually get this.
No. Pretty much equal distance, maybe going left or right around that one. I love to see the peloton doing that, and then they merge round the other side, but this is some breakaway, it really is. Two of the strongest time trialists in the world. The current time TT champion is swinging through to the back, and Ganna piling it on at the front there with Tom Pidcock in his slipstream. This isn't... of all the riders that you wanted up the road on a flat bit of road with a tailwind, Tobias Voss and Filippo Ganna, as well as the rest, you've really got your work cut out, haven't you? But look how stylish. I tell you who... Magnus Cort reminds me of a rider back in the 90s when they sit long. They sits quite a long way back on the saddle. It looks a bit like Van der Broek to me on the bike. Sits really long, real classic 90s style of rider. Sits really nicely back on the saddle. A little bit of a throwback, but a beautiful one. He looks so great on a bike.
What a battle this is, because look at the riders who are chasing as well. Remy Cavagna, Kasper Asgreen, Niels Pollitt. Miguel Mirko wasn't far away as well. He's being saved for Jakobsen if he can. But moving up there, we do have a tactical change now. We're into the final 16 kilometres, and Uno X, after letting the other teams suffer, wasting their riders a little bit, seeing the gap was starting to come down again, have had a rider added to the chase. So Uno X now contributing to the chase with just one single rider, Matt.
Yep, 20 seconds. They've taken a few seconds back. I'd imagine one of the Soudal Quickstep riders, or maybe one of the Bora riders, has had a word with that team, or they just thought, actually, do you know what, this is such a dangerous move, and we do want to try and win another stage, at least put one rider. They've got, this team's of 7, so it does make a little bit of sense politically as well as actually adding to the strength at the front. But you've still got some big motors here, especially the likes of Kasper Asgreen in particular, and Remy Cavagna for Soudal Quickstep. But you're quite right, they do need to keep Michael Morkov fresh, or freshish. Ilan Van Wilder won't want to do too much on the front either. He's protected for the general classification. So it's going to be down to Kasper Pedersen, Cavagna and Asgreen to do a lot of the pulling on this particular section now. So 18 seconds.
And still Bora Hansgrohe committed with Niels Pollitt at the back of this line. Kwiatkowski again with that signal. It's really, really intriguing. And look at the flags there. That's the wind. It is a block tailwind here.
Yeah, it's great. Moving so quickly. Doing long pulls on the front like an old school team time trial formation. And the likes of Ghana at these sorts of speeds could do pulls of around 30 seconds before swinging off. So rather than two lines, one line, just to give everyone that little bit of extra rest. 21 seconds the gap now, Rob.
How does this work out in the end? Again, are we still in buying a lottery ticket territory, or is it starting to look like a little bit more that this could pay off? This could be a genius move, carrying on through the intermediate sprint and taking it home, certainly with a group of riders. I mean, they're A-listers, aren't they? Absolute ballers at the front.
It is an absolute A-list of riders. It really is. Madawa looking good. Very good. They've taken another second back, went down to 18, back up now to 20, 21 seconds. So at the moment, Rob, the way they're essentially riding at pretty much the same speed. They're not really closing. It's ebbing and flowing ever so slightly. They're not eating into the lead. It just how long can these riders in front sustain this pace? 13 Ks to go. So we're probably looking at about 15, this sort's about 15 minutes of effort. Maybe just a little bit more, maybe 16, 17 minutes of effort. Flat out, this is going to come at a bit of a cost to the riders out in front as Cavagna hits the front now. This one long line of chasing riders, just the body language, the faces, they are absolutely full chat here. They cannot afford to back off at all. This really is full throttle all the way to the line.
Erik Nordsæter Ressel, the Norwegian rider from X, has been added into the chase there. We saw that it was Kasper Pedersen and Hemi Cavagna helping out Kisper Askren chasing. It is Askren now at the front. Also there was Fredrik Van Dale and Niels Pollitt. So the numerical advantage is actually behind here.
Yep, it certainly is. Pollitt now hits the front, so there's some big engines. If they're not really making any headway, they're holding it. It just depends on the deeper we go into this race, get under 10 kilometres to go, how much left have the riders got in front? At the moment, they're riding pretty well, and they've taken another second back, 22 seconds. And I don't think any other teams, looking at the composition of the chase here, looking at what's at stake, the type of riders this stage is going to suit. We've got all the big three sprint teams chasing, but none of the other GC teams. So Trek aren't involved, UAE Team Emirates aren't involved. I don't know if it's in their interests at all. So we've got this fantastic little bit of brinkmanship, and 3 more seconds have been taken now as we've got a split off the front. There are 2 riders moving clear. The chase starting to fragment. Some riders quite clearly in a lot of difficulty here, Rob. Gaps are starting to open up. This is looking good at the moment for the guys in front.
This helps those in front. There is little doubt about that. The one thing they have to do is continue to work together, and just as you finish making that point, Matt, the gap jumps up to 25 seconds. It's starting to look like advantage group in front.
Yep. Now, don't know if that was an attack. We didn't actually see those 2 riders drift off the front. But what happens is sometimes when you get fresh legs, somebody that hasn't worked for a bit, a team says, OK, we're going to put someone in the front. They go through too hard and it opens up a gap. You need to ride very fast, but the key to chasing is keeping it nice and smooth. And all it needs is for one rider to surge through and all the cohesion is broken. Gaps open up. People get frustrated as well. They need to be dialed, although they've got one collective interest to bring them back, but they need to ride as one team. And clearly there, I'm not too sure exactly what happened, but it looked as if somebody just went a little bit too hard on the front and opened up a gap. But now it's come back down to 19 seconds though. Now it's saying 10. I don't think that's accurate.
I'll wait for that to stabilise. It's all over the place here. They were all over the place in the chase group, which suggested that it was going to grow, if anything, that advantage. Ganna on the front. Tom Pidcock sitting just behind him now. A little bit of a reorganisation here. And a change because Rasmus Tiller has moved up in the Norwegian Champions jersey. He's sitting around 6th wheel. Ganna, Pidcock just continuing to talk to everybody, make sure that they're all committed. And Matt, there's no reason why they shouldn't all be committed here, because there's something to gain for everybody, isn't there?
Totally. All the riders here have actually got GC ambition, including Ghana, and he's helping Pidcock a little bit more as well. It might be a little bit too hard for Ghana tomorrow, but we know he's climbing well. Everybody here has got something to aim for, putting the rest of the peloton under a lot of pressure. But that little as they kicked out of that corner, do you see the effort that Pidcock had to put in just to get back onto the wheel after you've done your turn? You're going ever so slightly slower than riders in front. You then have that spike in power as you accelerate onto the wheel. These guys are moving so quickly, absolutely on the rivet, as we call it. Great bike racing, it really is. 15 seconds now.
And if this does come back together, what's going to be left for the likes of Soudal Quickstep and Bora Hansgrohe? Once more behind, by the way, the hands go up from Kwiatkowski and the Ineos Grenadiers. They're unhappy that the television motorbike is coming here to take images, and you can sort of understand why. That's why it's moved ever so slightly to the right here to take it from a different angle. Yeah,
definitely. Yeah, it's always a bit controversial, isn't it? But also there's a TV motorbike in front for the other riders too, but that's better. Moving over to the left-hand side, we can still get some great images, can't we? But it doesn't quite interfere with the racing, and that's been a common theme. It's always a common theme, isn't it? Especially when the stakes are high. As we're heading back to Rui Costa, it looks so good. Great to see this rider after some years, not exactly in the wilderness, but kind of faded into semi-obscurity in the peloton, and now great to see him back to his very best.
I mentioned this in Mallorca and in Valencia the other week. I was lucky enough to be commentating on his start to the season. He joined Intermarché and vocally said that he wanted to be like Alexander Kristoff. He used him as an example, said, look, I want to kickstart my career again and move in the same direction my former teammate did, because I saw him go there, and he was born again, was Alexander Kristoff, when he left UAE and went there. It didn't take long, did it? Because on the first day he won already in Calvià and Palmanova. Then he won in Valencia, stage and GC. And here he is, right up there in the general classification after 2.5 days, almost 3 days of racing here. He's second on GC as it stands, with the bonus seconds added, and looking like he could do seriously something at one of his big home races.
Yep, he's looking very good, isn't he? Looking sharp, that sprint as well, so climbing well. And just rolled Tom Pidcock for second place in that sprint, so clearly, and just by his expression, the way he's positioned in the bunts all the time, he looks hungry, looks keen, he's focused, isn't he? You can clearly see that as Tiller, the Norwegian champion, slowly doing his part to drag this group back now. 13 seconds, Rob, 8 kilometres to go, still that tailwind all the way pretty much to the line. We've got that series of little roundabouts with 2 kilometres to go, so it's a relatively complex last 1,500 metres. And then that final right-hander, that little kicker with 400 to go.
You've seen the size of this group, Matt. It's certainly not as full as it was 2 or 3 kilometres back. They are losing bodies because this is so hard just to stay in the bunch.
Yeah, it really is. I'm sure a couple of riders were shot out the back, but they're moving really quickly. But luckily on these long open road, they have them in their sights, don't they? But 15 seconds at this speed, it's a big gap, isn't it? It's a lot of tarmac. And they are closing, but it's only slowly. But there's still enough time for them to bring this back. But the cohesion, if 1 or 2 riders now start to sit on in this group, I think it'll be the end for them. But from what we've seen so far, every single rider is riding well. This is a really smart move as well, to spot that, to sense it, to seize the opportunity. It is a real textbook opportunity. We see these hotspot sprints. We've seen splits happen in the past like this, although it doesn't happen very often. With that tailwind too, and the gap that opened up, why not capitalise on it? And they might just pull this off. It's really hanging in the balance. Very exciting final, this one, Rob. Loving it.
I'd be really interested to see whose idea it was, or whether it was a decision made on the fly. Of course, Ghana being there for Pidcock, I mean, they would have had to wait and see that a gap opened up before they could go for it. There's no point just pulling the whole peloton. However, it was that little nod and word in the ear of Magnus Cort from Tobias Foss that really kick-started things. Like, OK, Ghana's still going here, let's follow him. Now Pidcock starts to sit on the back. There we go.
I mean, again, we know Pidcock is one of the finest riders in the world, but he's starting to suffer here. Everybody's suffering here. When you look at Tom Pidcock's quite a light rider, ridiculously high power to weight, but on a flat bit of road with these sorts of engines, it's all about absolute power. So the likes of Foss and Ghana, they are moving very quickly. So a couple of little moves missed there by Pidcock, but they've still got 16 seconds with 6K to go.
The French TGV, the high-speed train on the right-hand side. Cavagna Here's best young rider for the moment, Frederik Vandel. Danish rider for Bora Hansgrohe. Kasper Pedersen, another Danish rider, before the former national Danish champion is about to come to the front in Kasper Askren. After that, it's the current Norwegian champion, Rasmus Tiller. He's been around for quite a while. He's a really strong rider and solid finisher. Today, he's been used in a different role. He's trying to set things up for Alexander Kristoff or Søren Varensholt to have a go towards the end. Niels Pollitt has been riding hard, but the group in front are pulling seconds away again.
Yeah,
it's 18 now, and the difference and the distance on the screen is growing as well.
There's less riders on the front reeling now. There's about 6 or 7 reeling. So we've got 6 in front and about 6 reeling at the back. And some of the turns that I've noticed from the riders that have been put on the front are shorter. Frederik Vandal went on the front. He only managed about 5 or 6 seconds on the front. It's very, very hard. A lot of teams now moving up. I did see Caja moving up on the outside. So all it might take, but they can't afford to leave it too much longer. We've only got about 5 minutes of racing because we're moving at a best part of 60 k's an hour here, Rob. So 5 minutes to close, although I don't think it's quite 10 seconds. I think it's more about 15 or 20, but this is going to be a thriller. I don't want to call it just yet.
4 kilometres the line now as we have a look at that last kilometre on the left-hand side here, roundabout City, and then that right turn with 400 metres to go up to the finale. This is it. And it's a tight right turn. Not going to bother the group in the front so much, but there it is. And we go uphill. And the finish line at the top. It's not a huge percentage drag, but they will feel it in the legs. Certainly after that right turn at the bottom that will kill quite a little bit of speed. It's always a difficult sprint, this one. In the past, we've had winners, the likes of Bennett, Greipel, Groenewegen, Bol and Kittel. We might have another sort of sprinty name winning, this time in a different way, because at the front, the GC guys, faster riders, have broken away, have gone for it after the intermediate sprint. Behind, if there is going to be a bunch sprint set up, which is looking increasingly unlikely now in the final 3 kilometres, they really are going to have to work. And Is there anything going to be left?
Well, it's Pedersen on the front, Kasper Pedersen, 3 kilometres to go, just under now for the group in front. Look at the pace here. Look at Magnus Cort getting as low frontally as he can. Tuck that classic style, elbows, arms at 90 degrees, forcing the pace on the front with the world TT champion device, forcing his slipstream. 12 seconds, 2.6 k's to go. This is going to be thrillingly tight here, Rob.
2.5 kilometres to the conclusion of the stage. They're getting closer from behind. Some big turns being done, but a couple of riders are done for the day. You can see they peel off left and right from the bunch now as they start to get closer to the bunch. And it is 10 seconds of a gap. The other side of the roundabout continues to go uphill. We're in town now, into Vida itself, and we are ready for the finale to what's been a fantastic end to this stage. In the last 30 kilometres, things kicked off big style. Beautiful, beautiful bike racing and things you could not really have forecast at all.
Now, this is absolutely fascinating. I've just seen Niels Pollitt put a huge turn on the front. 1,900 metres to go as Filippo Ganna hits the front. This is the sort of power that you need. You need somebody now to sacrifice themselves. Remember, Ineos Grenadiers have got 2 riders in that front group. Everybody else is on their own. So Pidcock has Ganna. The Ganna, if they're going to stay away here as Alpecin de Koenig get on the front, they need to sacrifice somebody.
Interesting that Groupama FDG had a rider on the front there. You imagine that's a spoiling tactic because Madouas is at the front, or do they think that it could be one for Penwet? Let's see. On the right-hand side, they're looking to try and keep up there. That's Jack Stewart on the right-hand side. And now we have UAE Emirates because Matteo Trentin is getting interested with just over a kilometre to go. Look behind now from the yellow jersey, Magnus Cort. They've got to keep going. They've got to keep riding. It's a shorter distance than the one that you can see on your screen because they're now into the final kilometre. What a stage we have had here. And we're in for a terrific finale now into Vida. On the right, it's getting frantic as DSM try to get Casper van Uden up there as well. There's Jakobsen with no support left hardly, just trying to follow, just trying to be in there. We're into that final kilometre now, and it's still Tom Pidcock who commits once more. There's Rui Costa, Filippo Ganna. In the yellow you have Foss. Behind him there's Madouas, and the yellow jersey, the race leader, Magnus Cort, who won the stage yesterday. It's breathtaking, breathless stuff, and we've been racing for 5 hours and 4 minutes, but there has been an explosion of action inside the final 30. 40 kilometres. Here we go, and it is Ganna who makes that turn. Madouas is there. They could be on them behind. It could be heartbreak for this big group of riders. And I think they've decided now, they've realised they will be caught. And with just 450 metres to the line, they have been caught. But Cort is there. And can he go? He's going to launch his sprint to try and get something, to try and take advantage of any chaos behind. It's the race leader. It's Magnus Cort trying to hold them off all on his own. Ganna tries to get involved as well. Ganna's there on the left-hand side. Magnus Cort still got a gap though, and look at Magnus Cort go! Magnus Cort is on another level and still going. They'll try, but they cannot. And Magnus Cort with one of the victories of his career. Matt Stevens alongside me is applauding. All bow down. I said it yesterday, I will say it today again. We are all in the court of King Magnus. That is one of the most sensational things we have seen in bike racing for quite the long while.
That was utterly incredible. I thought Haller had brought them all back together. They were in contact, and then coming out of that corner, 400 metres to go, he took it up with a crosswind from the side and just rode them off his wheel, rode Ganna, Tobias Foss off his wheel after riding, doing a lot of work in the group already. And utterly, I'm speechless, Rob. An utterly incredible finish to a sensational stage. That is bike racing at its very best.
All smiles, and you would be, wouldn't you? This man is on fire. EF Education Easy Post, they have delivered, haven't they, at the start of this season? None of them can believe it. They better believe in him, because he's taken the stage win for the second day running. He has taken 10 more bonus seconds added to the 6 he had at the intermediate. Magnus Cort, as well as a 2-time stage winner. Doesn't matter, Matt, whether you're in the mountains or on the flats. He goes. He takes the lead. And he has added today 16 seconds, by nature of the bonuses, to his victory. And we've got to have a look here, because there might actually be a gap as well.
Oh, it's incredible. Did you see that? He basically knew there's only one way he was going to win this one. That was to take it up into that corner. Carried a bit more pace than Foss. And that first stamp on the pedals, I mean, the way he moved clear, Ganna held on incredibly for second place. A great ride by Filippo Ganna. But he might have had a big gap here. Well, he did have a big gap, but that was so impressive. It really was. Everybody else behind was utterly spent. Superb stuff. It really was. What an astonishing ride. But again, smart as well. There was no hesitation. He thought, I can't wait now. Foss backed off. He took it into the corner and just went all in. Absolutely 100% belief. That's what he had in himself there. And just that turn of speed that he's got at the moment, it's quite remarkable. Incredible stuff.
Matt Stevens, I really wasn't ready for that on a Friday afternoon. An exhibition and a day of bike racing we will not forget for a very, very long time. Put the crown on him, because he's here. The king of the moment. Oh, my word.
That was a great day's bike racing, wasn't it? Really, really riveting stuff. Takes the hotspot sprint and takes the stage.
Magnus Cort, Filippo Ganna, Jordi Meus, then Paul Penouet and Valentin Madouas. There's Oliveira, Costa, Foss, Turns, Aski. What a mix!
Yeah, Jordi Meus, the first of the favoured sprinters, and there was nobody to help Jakobsen at all. It was utter chaos, actually. There was riders all over the place, wasn't there? Riders were at the end of their tether as the junction was made.
Magnus Cort now leads by 18 seconds from Rui Costa. Ilan van Wilder is at 20 seconds in third. Valentin Madouas, Jai Hindley and Tom Pidcock are at 26 seconds. Ganna's there at 27. Then you have Foss, Mollema, Almeida at 28. It is quite the scenario with 2 stages to go on the Volta Algarve. No sprint days remain. We have a mountain day to Alto de Maial tomorrow in the east of the Algarve, in this very region. And then the time trial right smack bang in the south, and Lagoa to finish on Sunday. We know that Magnus Cort can climb. He's already won one mountain stage this week. We know he can sprint. He's taken one and an intermediate in the same 25k period. We also know he's not a bad time trialist. He might yet be on the road to even more victories so far this week. Pause, breathe, and here's stage 3 in highlight form. 6 riders went up the road. Costa, Fabio Costa that is, Guillermo Garcia, Gonzalo Amado, Alexander Grigorev, Daniel Viegos and Pedro Andrade were all up there. Grigorev took the 2 King of the Mountains, moved himself up to the 4th in that category with normal points available on the day. And the maximum of 3 minutes was the gap that the breakaways allowed. Soudal Quick-Step controlled for most of the day, given the fact that they had Fabio Jakobsen among their number. But EF Education easy posts were always there or thereabouts. We had breakaways from the break. And the last man standing was Fabio Costa. He'd be caught on the road to our intermediate sprint. Intermediate sprint was won by Magnus Cort. He then coasted along, got the signal from Voss, and they were off. Michał Kwiatkowski knew that that front group had a chance. They looked like they were about to be caught. 450 metres to go and the group was on them. But then Cort himself launched the sprint from 400 metres to go. Uphill as well. He got a gap, kept the gap, and amazingly, despite the fact that his legs will have been screaming at him, and they were approaching behind, big sprinters like Meus were there, Pinwet following, Ganna was holding on as well.